All right, so I have with me today as my guest the one and only Dean Thomas, the historical first ever coach of Jamaica's national rugby league team. We're going to be having a chat today just to take us through Dean's journey being involved with the Jamaica program. But first thing, Dean, tell us about your first memory of rugby league on a whole. I mean, I'm curious.
Yeah. I always think about how I first got involved in this game, and it was a grandstand. Must have been sort of late 70s, early 80s, probably might even be mid 80s. And you're watching grandstand on a Saturday afternoon. It's raining. You can't go out, so you can't do anything. And on this game is it's a bit muddy. There's guys running around. There's Eddie Waring commenting, and it's rugby league. And you've heard of rugby union, and it's Challenge Cup, and you're seeing sort of people like Martin O'Fire and Jonathan Davis and others playing on the. And you're thinking, I can do that. And that's sort of my first experience was watching it on the BBC and watching it on grandstand and just thinking, I'd like to do that. And, a number of years later, having sort of moved across from rugby union and athletics, I got to play the game and I never looked back. So I thought, it's just fantastic. Yeah. Rugby league. Sorry. Think about rugby league. You don't get, there's no dark arts. There's nobody trying to do funny things to you in a ruck in the mall, and it's beautiful, man, beautiful.
So you mentioned that you were in athletics before. Were you a sprinter, Dean?
Everybody knows my story about being a sprinter. I'm probably the slowest sprinter in the world, but I'm probably one of a select band of mediocre sprinters who managed to break 50 seconds for 400 meters. You know what I mean? So 400 meters as a club athlete in England and breaking 50 seconds, it's okay. But when it comes to rugby league, there's probably not a lot of sub 50 second 400 meter runners involved in the game. Obviously, unless of course you're from Jamaica. The whole team is full of sub 50 second 400 meter players, man. You know what I mean? And sub 11 second 100 meter runners. So it's England. People are fast. People are as fast as me.
And are we to assume that when you got in rugby league, involved in rugby league as a player, were you a winger in those early days?
I had played centre from sort of ages of 14, till sort of mid 20s at rugby union. I was a centre. I was a bit barnstorming. I could take a crash ball, and my hands were good. And then when you sort of move across and you have trials at rugby league, you suddenly realise your hands aren't good. You suddenly realise your skills aren't there. It's like, whatever I was doing in rugby union was great, and the catch and the pass and the spin thing. But rugby league, it's just a whole different level of skill, and it took some time to adjust to that. You move from centre to wing, whereas a rugby league centre, they've got all sorts of things in their arsenal. They can pass in front, they can draw and pass, they can offload for the back of the hand, they can fix a player. It's just a whole different game. And I think to familiarise myself with the great sport of rugby league, wing was where I had to go, and I enjoyed it. I really enjoyed it.
And what are some of the clubs that you played at?
I had 6 months at Wigan, which was interesting. It was a great experience. Watching. I was able to watch sort of Henderson Gill on the wing. Phil Clark was in the A team. He was captain of the A team. Was Phil Clark. Graham West was the head coach of the A team. John Money was the head coach of the first team, and I had 6 months on trial. Probably played some of the best rugby I'd ever played there, But when it came down to it, I was just a bit too old to be doing the contract. So, moved on from Wigan, went to Widnes for for about 4 weeks at Widnes. Really enjoyed Widnes. I'd my claim to fame at Widnes, and obviously these guys will never remember that. We were meant to go out for a street run. In fact, no, my first memory of Widnes is I go into the change room, I plonk my stuff down. I didn't know whose areas I was plonked down. I was plonked down in Paul Hume's spot. And I remember him coming in, looking at me, picking my stuff up and just moving it. I'm like, well, okay. All right, so this must be your spot then. So I moved. And then we got we sort of went out for a street run. And I have to say, I beat in that street run, claim to fame, I beat in a 3-mile street run, Martin O'Fire.
Wow.
And Jonathan Davis.
Wow.
So, you know what I mean? But look at them guys now. Top end, big and famous international players, and you know what I mean? I'm here doing my thing.
But so, you had your win. You had your win. That's the important thing.
I'm right, my win. And I let them know it. You know what I mean? So yeah, it was good. It was real good.
So did you play with any amateur clubs as well?
No, it was really strange. You went from Wigan to Widnes. I think I went to Lee, and then I sort of gave it a bit of a drop. Had a little break because I didn't get taken on in the Lancashire clubs. And then Manchester Rugby Union came in for me and said, "Can you come and play some Rugby Union?" So I'll go back to doing that, and played at Manchester Rugby Union for a bit. Enjoyed that, but it just wasn't the same. You know what I mean? It wasn't the same. It just wasn't the involvement. It wasn't the man-on-man confrontation that you got in rugby league. The one-on-one tackles. I was so, the things about rugby league back then, I was able to break a tackle, put the ball down at my feet, tap the ball and go myself. Excuse me. And tap the ball myself. And it was I used to make so many yards. Sorry. Oh dear.
Okay. Interesting there. And and fast forward a few years later, we know that the West Indies Rugby League setup started in the UK. Were you involved in that in the early days? And if so,
yeah, the story. And for some reason, I've got a cough, but I'm all right.
It's the weather. The English weather, man.
Oh man, it's damp. It's cold. Right, so in terms of West Indies, it always sort of been Steve Price. You'd hear about Steve, throughout the game wanting to set something up like this. And you'd had chats well before sort of I came on the scene. And I think sort of what galvanised the West Indies project to actually get moving and get going was really sort of a bit of drive from Dane Campbell, obviously, the ex-NRL player, and now I think he's a development manager at the Storm. He might have got another job, but Dane Campbell's sort of drive and enthusiasm sort of allowed people like Steve and myself just to mobilise a few things. So really, what we needed probably back then was that bit of drive. Was that bit of enthusiasm around the administrative side of it, and sorry about that, and just getting things set up, and obviously galvanising players and kit and such like. Dane did the kit side, we did the player side, and it was just really sort of trying to get a group of players together that wanted to represent. And I think when you look back, that would have been at the end of my playing career, beginning of my coaching career. There'd never been an opportunity to represent anybody within rugby league apart from your club. And you'd always want to think, okay, if I'd been given the chance, could I have done something as a player? So to be able to offer players an opportunity to represent the West Indies, even though it wasn't sanctioned, was great. It was a great outlet for that. I'm going to have to go because someone's ringing the bell and nobody's answering the door.
Yeah, man.
Can you to say?
Yeah, grab it and come back, man. No problem.
No, it's good. No, somebody else gone to the door.
Okay.
Okay. And I think given the opportunity to guys to present, it was great to be able to get people like Alan Hunt involved. I remember meeting Alan Hunt for the first time when I was playing for the Air Force in Rugby League against the Army at St Helens. And we were the pre-match before Saints played New Zealand in a tour match. And Alan Hunt played in that match, a very young Alan Hunt. And, he was a, top player. And then to be able to sort of get in touch with him later on and say, would you like to get involved and support sort of the coaching role? Because really, I didn't want to coach at that point. I wanted to support, administrate, and sort of galvanise and work with Steve on that front. Whereas when you need a name, when you're looking to try and bring things together and sort of, bringing Alan in, and Alan was really good at coming in, sort of, gave the whole thing a little bit of credibility as well.
So Alan was he then the first? Was he the head coach of the team then, of the West Indies team then?
Yeah, he was. Okay. The head coach. Yeah, he was the head coach, and I think. Well, he did the seven. He did the. To be fair, that was more the nines.
Mm-hmm.
The West Indies was the nines,
okay.
And Alan was heavily involved with us in the nines. So winning, I think I can't remember if we won at St Albans, but we definitely won the York Nines because that was a massive boost. I don't know if we won St Albans.
And do you remember what year it was that you won the York Nines?
Oh, the York Nines. I'm sure it was 2004 or 2005.
Oh, okay.
And that sort of year, it was in the press and the birth of a nation. I remember seeing that and I thought, that is absolutely fantastic. And obviously, once again, when Steve and I chat, people don't take that kind of thing seriously. But it's, and people don't realise that, representing, your heritage is pretty important. And, you see players naturally in this day and age, who are English. I'm representing Scotland. I'm proud to represent Scotland. I'm proud to represent Ireland. I'm proud to represent Wales. And it's sort of overlooked that people might want to represent the country, the region, where their parents came from, where their grandparents came from, and why not? And that would be our only avenue because we're not sort of linked to Wales, Scotland, or Ireland, but we are of West Indian and Jamaican heritage, and I think that was a big moment for me, and it's sort of being able to say to people, there's more opportunities within Rugby League for players of colour, of heritage, to represent, and once again, the power, the pace, the skill levels, were outstanding, and it was just a great occasion. It was great to win the York Nines, and great to get that exposure. And that, in my view, is obviously what galvanised the start-up with regard to Jamaica, because it was clear from the RFL at that point that the West Indies would never be allowed to play internationally as a sanctioned organisation unless they were a country. So the West Indies was classed as a British Lions scenario rather than a country, and which I thought was a bit hypocritical, to be fair, because Great Britain were always allowed to compete at sanctioned events as Great Britain, and Great Britain only sort of became England, Scotland, Northern Ireland, Wales. Obviously, when Sport England started to get involved and funding was available, and so the Great Britain concept, which was the only concept I remember as a kid growing up, sort of took more of a back step and became more of a touring thing.
Oh, okay.
Rather than your representative thing, where everybody's brought together to represent Great Britain against Australia, New Zealand, and Papua New Guinea.
Because I think the first time England was fielded in a World Cup. Wasn't it? Was it the 2008 World Cup? I think.
I don't remember, and that's something I have to look at.
Mm.
I think prior to that, it may have been sort of Great Britain. I
Great
think
Britain all the time, yeah.
yeah, so I think really to not allow the West Indies to band together, was a bit hypocritical. But when doors are slammed in front of you, you find a way. And I think, what came out of that was obviously, Paul Morris, hearing what was going on in the UK with the rep side of diaspora West Indian players. And Paul was very, very keen, having got in touch with myself and Dane, I think, to sort of bring it home to Jamaica. And fortunately, for the game, at a national level on the island of Jamaica, and as a representative level for the diaspora, the majority of players within that West Indian team were Jamaican. And you've obviously got a number of guys from Trinidad and Tobago, Damien Martinez, Nigel Arias-Mendez, Selwyn St. Bernard. You've got a lot of players from different areas of West Indies, and to call them guys Jamaican, they take me out and show me kicking or something. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But with their work and their support, and people like Alex Rowe, who didn't have Jamaican heritage but West Indian heritage, they helped get things moving forward, and the concept of Jamaica sort of was born out of that.
Yeah, because I remember distinctly, way back in about it was probably 2003. I remember I was volunteering in the rugby union office when that email came in. I think it was probably from Dane Campbell, basically pitching rugby league. And I remember that was the genesis of, persons in Jamaica starting to look at the game. I remember that original email was not taken up by the rugby union, but Paul, at the time, he was at the Sevens manager. So he knew about the email. And then, I know a few months later, when things wasn't going too well with him on the union, I know, that's when he started to really look at, the possibility of bringing in the second code. And, that's how people like myself, William Masterton, Roy Calvert, Keith Jackson, became, involved in those early days, to start the association in 2004. But it's interesting, as you said, countries like Trinidad, Dean, the same type of overture was made to Trinidad and a few other islands. But unfortunately, they just didn't have anyone on the ground, to take it up. But in Jamaica, as luck would have it, we had persons who were very interested in taking it up. So fast forward a bit, Dean.
Can I just say?
Yeah.
So what you're saying is that we're doing what we're doing around 2004, 2005, and things are already happening there. Then the call comes because you've already received an email and you've seen what's happening in England, and Paul then says, actually, let's bring this home, because he's already been starting to discuss things with you guys already. Because I didn't know that, you see.
No, I think, all right, my recollection, as I said, things were already happening in the UK. I know the West Indies group was formed, as far as I know, as a serious group. Dane Campbell was involved, definitely, because I think he's the one who sent the email, if I'm not wrong. It was an administrator, I remember distinctly, making a pitch. And then in 2004 is really when the meetings took place in Jamaica, in terms of the administrative meetings.
Right.
We often say that the father of rugby league in Jamaica is Paul Morris, because he's the one who really insisted on pushing the idea. So the other key players at the time were Keith Jackson, who was the coach at Vauxhall Rugby Club, and William Masterton. William Masterton is basically so William and Keith are like they're Jamaicans, but they're white Jamaicans, right? So they have a lot of knowledge of rugby on a whole and stuff like that. And, you know, these guys are very resourceful. And, you know, once that group of three, I think there were probably two other key persons involved, but those three persons, once they believed that the project was tenable, then I think that that is a real genesis of how the game was born. Because if they believed, you know, they were able to then transfer that belief to the other clubs. So, you know, there were three clubs really that founded it. So Vauxhall, which was Keith Jackson, the Sharks, which was my club, and the Army. So, you know, the fact that the Vauxhall, the head of Vauxhall was really convinced, I think that that made it easier for the Army and for the Sharks to go along with it. But yes, there was definitely some, this was 2004. So I don't remember if we had heard that, I think we had heard that there were some nines that the team had played in, because I think that was a part of the pitch. So yeah, so that's how we decided to take a look at it. And of course, Dane Campbell actually came to Jamaica, you know, and we met him. And like you said, one of the things that stood out to me was just the skill level of this person. You know, I was shocked at the things he could do. I'd never seen them before. And people like Roy and myself, we were really curious as to what type of training he had received, you know, to be able to do these, you know, that's the way he played. And remember, that is what really intrigued me, you know. So yeah, those were the early days, Dean. And like I said, a lot of people don't, well, a lot of Jamaicans in Jamaica, I don't think they really know about what was happening in the UK in terms of the West Indies. So I think it's important for us to bring back the history. And like you said, Steve Price, going back, I've spoken to Steve, and as far back as the 90s, you know, Steve said he had a dream that, you know, there could be a West Indies team, and, you know, they would laugh at him, he said, you know, when he would mention it. But within a few years, you know, I mean, you guys were playing in the nines, and I know you played against South Africa as well, which really, I think, in my mind, you know, that made it real in terms of the international possibilities, you know, for players of West Indian heritage. But as I said, so fast forward a bit, Dean, to when you were appointed as the head coach, the first head coach of the national team. Can you tell us about, okay, who did you speak to? What was the pitch? And what was it that made you decide to actually, you know, put your hand up and say, this is a role that I will take on?
I think really it was around that time I was strength and conditioning with Sheffield Eagles, and I was quite enjoying that, and I was sort of in and out of the Mark Aston school of rugby league, and he you know, he had a certain way he liked to play, very organised, very enthusiastic, energetic, very, you know, it was a really good way of playing rugby, and I would see what he was doing and look at it from an S&C. So now I was very much more interested in being a coach and developing my coaching skills than my S&C skills, you know, and that was just one of those things. And it was, I was watching him and chatting away. Then I remember him saying one day to me, you know, as Mark Aston will say, pick a team, Dino. Pick a team, Dino. So I picked a team. Did you not like my Mark Aston voice there?
I did.
I didn't get any reaction.
I think I got it.
So pick a team, Dino. So I picked a team that I thought he might select. I forgot who was supposed to be playing that weekend for Sheffield Eagles, and Howard Cartwright, who you know, and I love Howard Cartwright a bit, but you know, Howard Cartwright would split a 2-syllable word into a 3-syllable word and put a swear word in the middle of that to make the middle syllable. So everything was So I remember him saying, do you know what's that? And in his Howard Cartwright way. And I'm saying, oh, that's the team I'd select. And then Mark said, oh, no, that's a little rubbish. And I remember him saying to me, he looked at me and said, you'll never be a coach. You will never be a coach. So I'm there at that moment, and you know, being belligerent as I am, I thought I'm going to be a coach.
Of course. Of course.
It was that moment. I thought, I'm not having that. That team I picked was great. So just because it wasn't the team you wanted me to pick doesn't mean it wasn't a good team. You know what I mean? So that was the point I said, right. And probably within 12 months, I was head coach of Gateshead Thunder. And the thing about being head coach of Gateshead Thunder, which leads into Jamaica Rugby League, was that the pitch I made to them, obviously it was, the key for me is you've got to go where you're wanted. And, you can apply for assistant coaches at the Heartlands and here and there. And nobody gives you a look in because you are, somebody with no name,
Okay.
And, the man with no name needs to go somewhere to make a name for himself. So I was able to pitch to Gateshead. I think they just sacked Seamus McCallion, or Seamus had left. And they'd had a really bad few years outside of Super League. And basically, I was able to take pitch a lot of the West Indies boys to them. They came down to watch the West Indies playing a friendly against New Wales All Blacks.
Okay.
And they came to watch that game. I showed them some of the players that I was able to bring up, and they gave me the job. And then I was able to take up, people like Nigel Mendes, who now lives in the Northeast and he's a Michelin star chef, is Nigel. Selwyn St. Bernard, who still lives in the Northeast and is a policeman. Damien Martinez, who still lives in the Northeast. And I have no idea what Damien's doing, but he looks happy. You know what I mean? They're all married with children. And, Steve Elms came up and he lives in the Northeast. Now he's married and he's a rock star, pop star, and he's changed his name to Silver Laidlaw. Joe Brown moved up there. And he's been an integral part of Gateshead Thunder, the Newcastle Thunder as a coach. He's got a rugby school up there. And Joe Brown, who's obviously Jamaican captain, it's been fantastic. So a lot of players came up, stayed there. The Northeast is a beautiful place, and they made their homes. And it was at that point, I think there was a bit of a hiatus between the Jamaica project starting, the West Indies project finishing, and there being an opportunity where there wasn't anybody who, as an administrator, who I thought could help drive it forward with the support of Paul Morris. I think it was Paul, yourself. I can't remember who else was involved at that point in discussing it with him. And James, I think there was a board conversation because Paul was very keen on ensuring Rugby League came home. Now, Rugby League coming home was Rugby League coming home to Jamaica. And, all decisions are made in Jamaica and all that kind of stuff. It's beautiful. It's fantastic, which is how it should be. And hence that's why it's such a strong organisation, strong sport on the island, is administered and supported and works as an island-based international operation. And it was sort of a collective pitch, chatting, talking, discussing, and it sort of fitted for everybody. That's how I recollect it. Whereas other people might say, there was a massive board meeting in Jamaica and there was shouting and bawling and dominoes and drinking and I get starfish and then maybe we'll give Dean Thomas the job. But I don't remember any of that, you know what I mean? So I don't know what happened after we discussed it. But obviously it was good to be able to sort of say, right, let's go. And it was, I think, once again, it was enthusiasm. You're in 2006, so, you're talking a good 14 years. You're young. You've just, you've been 3 or 4 years outside being a player. You're enthusiastic. You've got energy. And it's they were looking, probably harnessing that energy to be able to raise funds and to link in with Dane and to galvanise players to come across. And, and that's how I remember it. And it was just, at that point, then a lot of hard work, pulling things together on the UK side to make things happen, internationally, and then linking with you guys. And I think that was, really tough. But part of that remit was to come round. I think it was, I can't remember if it was January 2009. I came over that year and started to do a lot of work with the locally based players, and that was really good for me. I must have been 3 weeks there. I was staying with William, and I was sort of supported, looked after by yourself and Roy, and it was just a fantastic experience. And to implement the things I'd learned as a Gateshead head coach into the local leagues, to have you guys more or less still using the plays and doing the kind of things we did over 11 years ago and seeing it now. I know some other guys have come in since and maybe they're changing a few things, but it was just the dream of having, and you were a big part of that, having a structure that were from international down to junior internationals, down through clubs, down through colleges, down through schools. And we all play the same way. We all do the same thing. Now, that to me, that's an environment, that's a structure. Now, as you know, for us to really implement that, you'd be hearing in England, oh, we're fantastic. Oh, we've done the structure with this and that. We do the same at this level as that level. And we were doing that on hardly any budget for Jamaica. We were doing it, and people don't recognise that or think that's of any, but it's, you look at the infrastructure that supports England and other international teams, and the talent pathway and this and this and this and this and all these structures. We did that.
Yeah, that's what I want to touch on, because as I said, I remember when you were coming across and meeting, with all the coaches. You didn't just meet with the national team players, the domestic boys, but you also met with the coaches and really gave a blueprint of how the game could be played. And I remember that, that was a first for the local game. In either code, whether rugby union or rugby league. And I remember that was a part of the struggle, because there were some people who took it on board seriously and realized that, this is the way forward, because pretty much we're being introduced to what it is like for semi-pro rugby league, in terms of this is how things is done. It's about structure. It's not about, simply players expressing themselves and playing how they want to play. And some persons were on board, and then what we found is that over the years, some coaches, were not on board, because they thought that, well, you know what we're going to do, and I think they misunderstood. All they had to do was to change the calls, but the key thing was playing the game in a structured way, and I think that, as you say, it has taken a while for, some teams to get on board and to understand what that means. And I think the reason for that, really, Dean, if you think about it, when you came way back in 2009, that is still the first and only time that, we have actually had, an outside source, right, who is not a part of our domestic scene, come in and actually sit down and present a way of playing, to all the teams who are in existence at the time. That has not happened since, and I think that Roy and myself, that's a part of what we try to do, in terms of insisting and preaching over and over again that the game needs to be structured, and this is why, and like you said, we can't underestimate the importance of you laying down that first blueprint. That's a blueprint that I still coach by. It's a blueprint that Roy still coach by. So you may change names and stuff like that, but we kind of understood that structure is needed. And I think, as I said, that was a massive moment in our history. And the results didn't come right away, but the results are there now. If you look at, how some of the top domestic players, if you look at our wins against the US and Canada at home in recent years, if you look at how we are playing, it's all coming back from that moment. When you came, Dean, like, what was your what was your thoughts though in terms of the domestic players on the domestic scene? What was your honest thoughts? Because Kingston is a long way from the UK, and obviously the game is it's very different. You know, you're talking about professionalism versus pure amateurism in Jamaica. I mean, were you shocked at the standards? Were you thinking, oh my God, we'll have to build everything from the ground up? I mean, what were your honest thoughts?
My honest thoughts were enthusiasm, commitment, desire. And all those sound like really nice sort of platitudes, but they're real. And, all you want as a coach or as somebody trying to create a system is for people to turn up on time, for people then to want to be coachable and listen, and for people to put into practice what you're doing and then do it with a smile on your face. That's it. And that's what you got. And so when you're trying to, anybody coming into a setup, if I introduced Tiddlywinks and Billy Bob and a load of rubbish, you would automatically tell me that's a load of rubbish. Players would tell you that's a load of rubbish. But I think because you're able to prove your points to players, because you're able to say, because the guys were soaking it all in, you say, right, this is how you create a 2-on-1. This is how you create a 3-on-2. This is how you exploit these opportunities. This is how you take the line on and just do a simple thing like put your correct leg forward, take your body that way, and you play your pass like that. So, and suddenly when somebody understands that, well, if I'm going that way, the defender's going that way, I'm creating a space for the ball carrier to go in the gap. And it's, if you can't explain what you're trying to do, no one's going to listen. But it's everybody listen. And you think about the systems and processes. You think about Gary Everington, who brought rugby league back to Sheffield Eagles, and the systems he would have put in place, and for John Keir to take over. And then John Keir had Mark Aston, and he had the current Castleford coach. And I've heard calls when the current Castleford coach was at Featherstone that sounded like 4s and 3s. That sounded like 21s, 22s, 44s. And you're thinking you've done Mark Aston doing the same thing. And when you look at it, it was just like, there is a system that, a number of coaches will play a certain way, and then they will take that system out and do the same thing because it makes sense. It doesn't make sense to everybody.
Easy, one of the easiest systems to work. Numbers is, I remember you saying that to us.
I love numbers, and numbers, I'm dyslexic, so numbers works with me. And it worked for the players. The guys were just, taking it all on board, but, of course, anybody going to Jamaica thinking you were going to get, League One and Championship players, semi-pro players playing at a standard straight away, it's just, it's just not possible. The whole project, in my view, and I think I remember saying this, would be still ongoing when I've even left. And you're talking from 2009 to 2018, was it when you won those international games? Mm-hmm. 9 years. 9 years. And people think 9 years is an eternity. You know what I mean? It's just a small investment in time to create what is happening on the island now in terms of the way they play. But it all starts with coaches and people who want to coach. And it all starts with players who want to be coached and are prepared to do the right things. And that's what you had. Coaches wanted to listen, players wanted to be coached. And the island and the game on Jamaica has just gone from strength to strength. And, you're only looking, and I know it's a long time, but you're looking at another 10 years now. You might be in your 60s in 10 years' time. I forgot how old you are. So, in another 10 years' time, the island of Jamaica will be probably battling itself year in, year out without diaspora players getting to World Cups. But it's going to take another 10 years of the work you're doing in schools, the work you're doing with the colleges, the work you're doing in getting your athletes to consider who have been brought up with basketball, cricket, and athletics and rugby union to say, rugby league is it. And I think this World Cup and the guys that have qualified for the World Cup is great. And the guys that are going to come across who are locally based international Jamaican players coming to England to represent Jamaica in the World Cup is just going to make my eyes water. I'm just going to be so happy and so proud of them and their journey and your journey and Roy's journey and, and the journey of the players who have now come on board in the UK, who've gotten us to this point, and just be like, yeah. And it's not about who started it or who did what. It's just pride that we've done it. We've done it. And we've done it on our own. You know what I mean? We've done it on our own. And, that for me is fantastic. And, you've got a few people to thank on the way to getting me to Jamaica, my wife, the finances you put into yourself to do this. But, I had meetings with Gary Everington and I was asking him for advice and guidance and help. And, then he put me in front of Kevin Rudd and Richard Lewis. And, that helped sort of start the process of that, ensuring that Rugby League Europe funded things on the island to a certain extent. And it's still not enough. You know what I mean? It's still not enough, but it's been a start, but it needs to get better. And it's people like that who had vision. Maybe Kevin Rudd and Richard Lewis, if they weren't at the time, there'd be no coaching funds available in Jamaica. They had the foresight to see it was a good thing. Gary Everington had the foresight to see it was the right thing. And you've only got to see, sort of 12 years later, how supportive Gary Everington is having Jamaica based at Leeds. Always has been.
True.
And that just shows, his vision for Rugby League, his vision of supporting the communities in and around Leeds who are desperate to see, people like them become internationals. And you've got obviously some great England players of Jamaican heritage, West Indian heritage, who are playing for England now. And, that's great, but there's nothing better than saying for those players who can't get those England opportunities, here's your other option. Here's your other option. Come be the best you can be representing Jamaica. And that to me is just a fantastic thing. It's a beautiful thing. And we've done it. We've done it.
What do you say, Dean, to the detractors? So I know a lot of people internationally, they say in other countries, they say, well, teams like Jamaica, our situation is a bit more unique because, effectively we run two programs. Let's be honest. When we play in the Western Hemisphere, in the Americas, most of the times the team is 100% domestic players or 90% domestic players. The only time heritage players play in more numbers than domestics is when it comes down to the World Cup Qualifiers. That is how it has been since 2011, right? Whenever we play in Europe, the majority of the team is UK-based heritage players, are 100% when we played Wales and Ireland, past and France. We have just now implemented some procedures to ensure that, we have a couple of domestics coming across, since we have qualified for the World Cup and, we're able to attract a bit more sponsorship, right? But what do you say to those persons who say that, well, the team is not, it's not authentic if it's heritage players, who are in the majority? We see a lot of criticisms from some people, it's not just the Jamaican team, obviously. If you look at the Tongan team now, that did so well in the World Cup, quite a number of those players, well, none of those players really, as far as I know, were originally in their domestic scene. What do you say to people like those?
I'd say, and really have a good look in their eye and say, my heritage. My heritage. I choose to play for Jamaica. And for me, if the rules state that somebody with grandparents from from another international area can play for that country, then those are the rules. Now, sometimes those rules suits other countries. So, for example, wherever England, we can get Rangi Chase to play. That's beautiful. That's lovely. And I would never say that was wrong. Other players would say, well, I'm English, English, and I should be playing instead of Rangi Chase. That's great. That's fine. But those are the rules. So for anybody with Jamaican heritage, representing the country of their heritage, and any player born in Jamaica, living in Jamaica now, representing the country, it's a great thing. And anybody who has any negativities really they haven't got anything positive to say. There's nothing they can say that would make me think this is wrong. Because I think, what is wrong about it? What is wrong about it? You've got a country of 2 million people, 2.5 million people in Jamaica who are qualifying for a World Cup, who, are able to export their greatness in their people to other countries. And those people are taking on board what they've learned in those countries to bring back rugby league to Jamaica. I think that's fantastic. I think that's great. And I think that needs to be celebrated rather than derided. Now, I don't hear that much these days, and maybe that's because, I don't know, but if I did, I'd just slam it down. It's just bang, done. You got nothing to say. These are the rules. This is a great opportunity. This is cohesion. This is an island of 2 million people who produce the greatest athletes in this world are choosing to play rugby league. And if some of those players are England-based, Australia-based, they're still Jamaican heritage players and deserve the right to represent the country of their heritage. So don't come to me with any negativity.
And I think, Dean, lack of knowledge is a part of the problem, as well as we'd say in Jamaica, good old bad mind, to be honest. I think the lack of knowledge comes because a lot of people don't seem to realize that most countries in the world, right? Most countries in the world, there are laws that afford citizenship to, through parentage or grandparentage. So if you're in the UK, if you're English born in the UK, and you have a Jamaican parent, by law, you're entitled to be a Jamaican citizen. If your grandparent is Jamaican, you are also entitled to be a Jamaican citizen. And most countries in the world, that is actually the recognized laws. And this is where the heritage rule actually comes from. A lot of people don't seem to acknowledge it, or they choose to conveniently ignore it. And I think that the bad mind, as we would say in Jamaica, the grudgefulness comes where genuinely, I believe that many persons within the game, they want to see the game dominated by the same 1 or 2 countries. And, they fear the day when, they won't be able to be the best because, there are so many other sports that they are not the best at. And I mean, I'm sorry to say this, but this is what I sense, when I hear some of the bitterness, with people complaining about countries that use heritage players. Everyone knows realistically that the game is only played professionally in 2 or 3 countries. Therefore, those countries naturally will have, the players who can win a World Cup realistically. You're not going to find an amateur team. You're not going to take up 22 Nigerians, from Nigeria or Ghana, born and raised and playing in an amateur competition, and go to a World Cup and beat Australia or beat England or beat France. So I think, that's a part of it. And I think it's something that we need to call out more as a community. But tell me, Dean, the last thing I want to talk about is that we're coming up on the anniversary I think November 14th is going to be the anniversary of Jamaica's first ever international game against the USA in 2009. Take us back, Dean, to that first international game. Walk us through your experience leading the team, putting the team together, some of the challenges, what the expectations were. Just bring us back to that moment a few years ago when we played our first international.
Yeah, it was obviously Jacksonville, and I think that particular year, we'd obviously got that relationship with Virgin Atlantic. That particular year, we were able to call on some really good players, and obviously I'd put out feelers to players then who are now involved now. So I remember speaking to Jordan Turner. Now Jordan's involved, but obviously, once again, it's see how you're doing and how you're doing, and that's quite right because Jordan had English aspirations. I remember speaking to Leon Price at the time, and once again, it was it's a wait and see scenario, but that's understandable because obviously, Leon Price is one of the greatest players I've seen play the game. Whether it be at centre, at fullback, at 6 or 7, an absolutely fantastic player. So you're then working with players who've got a point to prove, who want to show they've got what it takes. And that passion, once again, with that skill level, especially at, League One and Championship, sort of got us over the line. We had to do a lot of work with the players on proving their heritage, getting birth certificates, getting birth certificates that showed grandparents on them or parents on them. It took a lot of work to get that coordinated. And, it took a lot of work to make sure we got the kit right, because you didn't want guys going out there not feeling right. People have to feel good. People have to have a good experience. I remember trying to get, I think it was here we tried to get the bus. Ikram Butt was supporting us from the Leeds Federation. And then something happened and the bus couldn't come. It was just lots of different stresses. But I think once we were there and we got the use of the Jacksonville facilities that year, I've loved to be able to use their rehab, because when you look at the rehab at the University of Florida, it is just beautiful. You're thinking, yes, this is where I should be with my international team. But we couldn't use all of it. But we had our own blow-ups. We had our own sort of cold baths. We had our own sort of environment that we created for the guys. That was fantastic. And, we went out there and, we played really well. We did really good things. And it was, it was just unfortunate that we lost that game. But, we were close. And every year we've been close. And it's building on those experiences, because you've been around the group ever since that first international. You've seen the growth and development of the setup, not necessarily the players, because players come, players go, but it's the setup, how it's organised, what works, what doesn't work, what makes players feel good, what makes players feel bad. Well, and it's gets to a point where you can get to, the 2018 qualifiers, 2019 qualifiers, and get us to the World Cup because of those experiences you've had being around those environments, and people like myself have been able to sort of go through that, trailblaze that, so that others can learn, develop, and see how things can work. And like I say, it's a journey, but just to get there, be there, walk out at the head, sing the national anthem, and the whole process of working with guys, and we will learn the national anthem. We will do that. We aren't here just to make up numbers and pretend. Eternal Father, bless our land. We needed to know that. We did that, and I was proud. It was great. It was just a beautiful moment, and all the games were beautiful moments for me. However they went, good, bad, or ugly.
Were you were you surprised, Dean, at I mean, all right, the results saw the USA winning the game, right? Obviously, so the Jamaican team, I think, if my memory serves me right, I think we had about maybe it was maybe a 10-7 split, maybe 10 heritage players or so. I think maybe 7 or 8. I think 7 boys from home. I remember Steve Price, who was your assistant coach. I remember he had to play because I believe one of our players from the UK, or maybe it was one of the local boys, was unable to make the trip. And 2009, just for the historical record, no, we did not have, we didn't have the Virgin deal yet. I believe, if I'm not wrong, wasn't that the trip that the players had to, well, like many other trips, including 2018, that when we qualified. But I think the players had to part fun their way.
Yeah. The Virgin deal was
2010.
Subsidized.
Right.
The Virgin was subsidized. We never had any flights paid. It was all subsidized. And so the players had to raise funds on every occasion.
Right.
But that was, once again, that's part of that commitment to drive. If you want to represent, this is what happens. And like I said, we are, Jamaica's a country of 2.5 million people. It's not rich. It's when, we're not backed by the Olympic Committee in Jamaica. We're not backed by XYZ. It is, we do it, we trailblaze. And, you've got to look at Wayne Price. I saw him in the crowd last year when Jamaica played the England Knights. I had a really good chat with Wayne. Wayne was so proud, man. Wayne Price did it. Wayne Price was at everything he could get to. Wayne Price was a leader, and you think about Jermaine Ray, Joe Brown, they just really were epitomized what it was to be English with Jamaican heritage and be, and want to prove and show the world that this is not a joke. This is happening, and we are going to compete, and we are building, and it's and when you work around players like that who do that, and developing. And I know there's you have your ups and downs with players, but those same players from that first journey learned a lot about themselves and how to conduct themselves and how to be, and that it wasn't for some it's if I pay for my own flight, I can maybe just do a few things. No, when you come to represent your country of heritage, you come to represent and you come to give it, and that's taken a number of years to get that right. But it's right now, and it's right now because of all the experiences that every player, every coach, every administrator has had over the last 11 years, over the last 15 years, even from the West Indies projects, to get to the point where we're qualified to the World Cup. And we say we're here. We are here. And we will make an impact. And we will do the best we can do. We're at the World Cup.
True.
We are at a World
That is true.
Cup. You know what I mean? And when you say the words World Cup, that conjures visions of Pelé for Brazil, conjures visions of, England 1966, Jamaica 2021 at the Rugby League World Cup. That, man, is, and I know you've obviously worked a lot with the authorities in Jamaica to take full advantage of what is a great opportunity. And I know, obviously, hopefully the Olympic Committee are on board now, and all sorts of different people are on board.
We're
man.
Can you imagine? So we are still not even an affiliate of the Olympic Committee, even though we can be. We're not an Olympic sport, but the Olympic Committee can recognize, obviously, any sport in Jamaica, but they have chosen not to do so. Still, so
I think at the next Olympics wasn't Rugby League Nines due to be played?
No, man, no, it's not. It's not the international. It's not the international rugby committee that's the issue. It's a local Jamaican Olympic Committee. I'm saying,
right.
We have applied to be recognized as affiliates, but they have chosen not to do so up to this point, and I do not know if they will. But the usual politics,
Yeah.
But whatever challenges, we continue to press on. We do what we have to do, and we'll continue to to do so. But it's still the same challenges, Dean. It's the profile of a sport has gotten a lot bigger, obviously, being in the World Cup. There's a lot more lip service as well. So, I think the ethos hasn't changed. One of the things that you taught us well is learn to do it yourself, and that's what we have pushed just the same. We are doing it ourselves. We are doing different things to try to make things work. We have Alex Simmons and Jason Robinson helping us out. For the first time, we have that type of support system in the UK or feel, and this is one of the things that really hampered you, in that when you were involved, you had to do everything. You were the head coach, but you were also the person who had to be trying to raise funds and do everything in the UK on zero budget, and I know that all those things were a part of the struggles that you had, but each time you still delivered. The team got together, the team was competitive, so that journey, I think rugby league is a journey of struggles, to be quite frank. It's just a part of our DNA, and we just have to keep pushing forward.
You know what? It's our struggle. It's nobody else's struggle. It's not. Do we want to be a rugby league playing nation? That was yes. Whether it was from Paul Morris, from yourself, from Roy, from me, from the players. Yes. The West Indies, people want West Indies. People want that. And that's just going to take time, and it's going to take more administration and more support of what you do over there. But that's what they want. So right now, we all wanted one thing, and that was to represent Jamaica. And with that comes responsibility, comes sacrifice, and real sacrifice. And I think that's what it's about. You can't as a person, and when you put your all into something, you can only do it for so long. Then you've got to recognize, and this is one of the things. I don't read very often, but I read a bit of Wayne Bennett's book. Mm-hmm. I like to read Wayne Bennett, and it's one of those things where Wayne Bennett has been at institutions for a very long time, and then moved on when he was ready to move on. He recognizes when he's ready to move on, or when he needs to refresh the team and the people that work for him, and he either refreshes or he moves on. And I think you get to a point where you have to move on, but you have to move on having supported people to take things forward. So that handing over of the responsibilities in Jamaican back into yourself, and then you working with others, like Glenn Morrison and Jermaine Coleman, and everybody recognizing we're all part of the same picture. It doesn't take great leadership. It just takes an understanding of what you're trying to achieve, and that is why I'm proud, because we've all played our part. All of us, me, you, Roy, all the players, Steve, Dane, every Des, everybody's played the part in getting us. Sue, Morris, everybody's played a part in getting the journey that is Jamaica Rugby League to the World Cup. And now we're there. It's great for me to sit back, and it's great for me to watch you and Jermaine and Mr. Simmons and others just take it forward, and it's just great because it's you've done your bit, and when you've done your bit, you step back, you smile, and you enjoy. It's great being a fan. It's great being a bit of an ambassador. But I've done my bit. I've had my time. it's been great. And now I get to watch Jamaica Rugby League at the Rugby League World Cup in 2021 in my lifetime. In my lifetime.
That's true.
You know what I'm saying? Come on, man. I don't care, Jamaica, the Jamaican High Commission, the Rugby League, or the Olympic pick, so what? So what? You know what I mean? When you look, when everybody, whether it be a player or a coach or administrator, talks about their involvement, I was part of that journey. And that is just, you could throw, you won't throw an MBE at me or a CBE or recognition at the RFL for being blah, blah, blah. No. Working and being part of the process of getting Jamaica Rugby League to Rugby League World Cup, for me, is the pinnacle of anything I've done. And that, for me, is just beautiful. So I smile. I nearly cried last year, at the England Knights game. Nearly sort of. Thought,
maybe something did come, but
something happened.
Maybe it was frozen in that November, wind.
some dust was happening, but it was there, and when you see the guys, you look at all the players that have come through and are still there from that first game. And I remember Joe Brown and the prop. Oh, my head's a shed. Oh,
Lamont?
No, Lamont wasn't there last year.
Jody.
Oh no, from the word go. Was it Huddersfield, wasn't he?
Ross
Peltier.
Ross Peltier, yeah.
Peltier.
Yes.
Man, his journey from where he's been to where he is, and his passion, his pride, where we are now. I've just seen the man grow.
True.
From a kid who's come from with us 2009 when he first came to the man he is now, and Joe, is the same. And you think about where they are. I would love to have seen Jermaine Ray get there. I'd love to see Jermaine Ray get there. Jermaine Ray, for me, was wow. What a hooker, what a player. And, I'd love to see him get there. And there's other players I'd like to see him get there who didn't maybe jump on the pathway then. But, they're there. And everybody can watch and say they've done something, Romeo. And that, to me, is priceless. That, to me, is better than anything, because I'll get to sit there. I'll get to sing the national anthem. If the boys take a knee, I'll be taking a knee. Whatever they do, I'll be doing. And I'm so proud of the moment, what they achieved last year, watching it on video, seeing the streaming of the guys getting on there, seeing the camera from behind Roy Calvert, Roy jumping up and down. Roy, you've never seen Roy jump up so high, man.
Tell you.
And you think about that, and that's beautiful.
I mean, it's been a fantastic journey, Dean, and I think that the reason I wanted to do this interview, as I said, is to have a historical record, of our first international head coach, and what not just your journey with the Jamaican team has been like, but a bit of your personal journey as well. And I mean, it's an opportunity to publicly say thank you for everything you have done, Dean, which was quite a lot, lots of personal sacrifices with your family and yourself. And, you really lay the foundations in terms of, what the national team should look like, professionalism, integrating the heritage players and domestic players. And that's the blueprint of what it would take to find success. And, I think it is very important that those who come after us, will be aware of this as well. So, I mean, it's been great talking to you, Dean. I mean, I look forward to having a chat again and seeing you in person if life spares at the World Cup next year. Hopefully COVID doesn't prevent that. But, just thank you for all that you have done, continue to contribute to Rugby League, and, just keep the fire burning.
Respect, Romeo, and we'll hopefully see you soon, yeah?
All right. So, recording.